Right, so today I'm going to be taking a look at all the twos in the cards. And the twos are all often about relationships, but they're also about making decisions. So where some of them talk about failure to make a decision, some of them talk about needing to make a decision. Some of them also talk about actually the empowerment of making decisions. But then, of course, depending on the suit, it can also represent, for example, relationships or partnerships. So usually the twos are unions, pairings, that sort of thing. Then on the flip side, of course, it's choices, decisions, and I think also cooperation, exchange, balance as well, or can indicate a little bit depending on the combination of the cards with another card. It can also mean the imbalance. So there's that. Some of them will suggest harmony, where some of them will suggest a bit of strife until the decision's actually made. So there's twos are also some of them have a sort of a gentleness about them. They are about cooperation. They're about coupling. So they tend to have a gentleness about it, sensitivity. There's also a bit of an openness about twos. There's about a vulnerability sometimes. It also talks about intuition, some of them. Some of them are specifically calling upon your intuition. Negative sides of the twos are that it can literally mean waiting. So some of them, like the two of spades, is about waiting around. Sometimes it's our own choice. We just need to make those decisions. So they can talk about being passive, which is, again, usually our own choice and our own problem. They can also indicate dependence. There's a certain shyness as well sometimes if they involve, let's say, with starting new businesses or romances or, that sort of thing. Sometimes it can also cause a deceit. It can also talk about deceit, or oversensitiveness, or pain even when it comes to these two of spades. They also sometimes call for a bit of humility, and it shows a bit of reluctance and sometimes subservient to your own fears and that kind of thing. So, for example, with the two of clubs, it's usually about business partnerships because those are the goals are more about businesses and goals and businesses. So it can indicate business partnerships if the reading is about that. And possibly even the doubling of something. The twos have that sort of duality where they talk about doubling, of the situation. It's also a crossroads sometimes because it's requiring that you make a decision and you're not, in case of spades and that kind of thing. So there's that. The two of clubs specifically is about just not making a decision, going backwards and forwards and weighing up all the options and just not actually getting to the point where you make a decision. You kind of just never make one other way. So it's calling for you to actually make that decision. It's also fear of the unknown and that sort of thing. So sometimes the two of clubs is about waiting and reflection about where you're going, what you're doing, and that sort of thing. Of course, the two of hearts, most people know it's because it's usually about romance. It's usually about connecting with somebody in a very intimate sort of way. So it also indicates success in relationships. But again, with all the cards, you have to be careful how you read them. Just because you've got a two of hearts doesn't mean that you will have a successful relationship. It just means that you will have a consummation of a relationship. So it depends on how they fall out in the spread and in combination with other cards. It also, of course, then means marriage, altruism, unions, cooperation, and then, of course, new romance, of course, because you've got the two of hearts, especially when it's paired with an ace of hearts, indicates new romances. It also can indicate, depending on the position, a desire to connect to somebody. So somebody is inquiring about someone and they're not in a relationship. That can also come in and represent that. It can also represent a passion for something. It doesn't have to necessarily be a person. It could be an art. Let's say you're an artist or a musician or something. It can actually come up in in a reading regarding a passion, and that would the two of hearts would indicate the absolute passion, sort of the partnership between you and that art or passion. The two of diamonds is about also making a decision, but also about transition. So things are changing. The diamonds are usually about security. So this indicates that there are things changing, and there's sometimes a decision to be made with regards to that. But it calls to be more flexible and adaptable so that you can allow the changes to happen without overly clamping down on things or getting into a comfort zone. So that's what the two calls for. It also, calls on you to trust your intuition, to have the insight to know that what you've chosen or what you are choosing or what you're considering is the right choice. On a negative side, depending if it's on a negative spread, it can indicate fickleness, compromise. Just also it can also indicate financial fluctuations and that sort of thing. But also relating, because it's the security aspect of diamonds, it also can relate to emotional fluctuation. So it all depends on how it falls within the spread and how you are interpreting it. The two of spades is usually the one that people want to avoid. This means this is a decision that has to be made. The spades are always usually spiritual cards, and it calls for you to make an important decision, a difficult decision. And sometimes we're just avoiding it. It's just outright avoiding it, where, for example, with the two of clubs, we may be thinking about it, but not quite sure about it. The two is usually indicative that we just don't want to make it. So it's saying you need to make this decision so you can move on. It calls up into mind a lot of doubts. And this literally then doing the opposite of the two of diamonds, where you don't listen to your own intuition and you get so confused that you just end up not making any decision at all. So you can look at the two of spades as looking for clarity, trying to get some sort of clarity on a situation or a decision that needs to be made. It's usually about decisions. And they can also indicate separation. Because of the lack of decision, it can also indicate separations, for example, within a relationship. It can be temporary, but it can still be there. So it leads to stubbornness, conflicts, arguments, and basically the inability to get along because something needs to change. You need to make a decision, and you're just not, you're avoiding it. So that is the twos in a nutshell, and how they correlate to the cards.